Hey everyone, Action Movie Dad here, and I wanted you to join me on a late night work session adventure. Imagine it is May the 4th, as in May the 4th be with you, at about 2 or 3 in the morning, and you really wanted to put together a video to come out today using all the cool footage you have of your son at the Star Wars convention. Now, it's not a lot of time to get the video together, especially because I've got to get to work in the morning, so if you'd like to stay up with me, I will show you what I went through to get this done. So we got this really cool footage of this awesome AT-AT statue that's there at the convention. So I've loaded it in. I'm going to create a new null, and then I'm going to track the footage. I'm going to find a good high contrast point kind of near the head, and another point that'll serve as reference for rotation. I don't think I really need scale because footage doesn't move around that much. I'm starting at the end of the clip because that's when this head is really visible, and running the track backwards. And here's a little trick. Whenever your track points are about to go out of frame, you can Alt-click on the box and move it to another point that's sort of in the same vicinity. And as you continue to run the track, you'll see it just moves those same target points upward, even though it's tracking from a different location. So it's a great solve for when you're using the point tracker and something is going to go out of frame. So to create the head of this AT-AT, I'm going to create a new solid, and then I'm going to apply Video Copilot's element. As I mentioned before, I used this to do all of my rigid body kind of animation, and this is a perfect example. Here's the interface. I'm going to jump in and import this AT-AT model that I actually have from another Action Movie Kid video coming up. I've isolated the head in Cinema 4D from a model that I got online, which is really great. So I have the geometry here, but I need a texture for it. I have some good stock metal images, and I think will work well for this. You'll see I'm increasing the UV repeat just because the texture is a little big when applied to this whole head. That seems good to me. I'm going to see if these other textures are anything significant. Element really breaks up stuff by the texture it's assigned in other programs. So this seems like it'll work alright. I'm going to take a little peek at the texture of the real model. Looks like they have these kind of rusty things just like this texture, so we'll say OK. I'm going to go into my Group 1 properties and create a null. That'll basically just put a nice little 3D spot that I can use to rotate the whole head. I'm going to go back into the scene setup real quick and adjust the anchor point of where this head is revolving. I'm going to move this forward so you see I'm putting the end of the neck right on the anchor point of this 3D object. Here in the output settings, I'm going to adjust some of the render quality settings. I'm going to increase the sampling and super sampling just so it doesn't have as much of that aliasing on it to try to make it look as good as possible. Turn up some ambient occlusion, and then I'm going to use the color matcher and try setting the 3D object to just match the color of the scene a little bit better. Now obviously lighting plays a big factor in this, so we're going to have to get this aligned. And then once we've got it aligned, we can start adding in some lights. Now, you'll notice that I don't really have a camera or anything going on right now, but that's because I think this is going to be a quick enough shot that the camera tracking data isn't all that important. Right away when I create a spotlight, you see that it starts to match the footage a little bit better. I can kind of adjust this and its direction. I can also play with the shadow settings in here, turn them on. And the next step is kind of just tweaking these lights and the shadow darkness settings, trying to see what result I'm getting. I'm kind of heavy on my ambient occlusion, but I think that if I can combat that with some more light under here, that'll work. Let's see if I can try to match the direction of that cast shadow, just looking at the real AT-AT, so we're as close as possible. And there we go. It's pretty good. It could be a little bit, let's see, brighter. I'm going to probably bring in some bounce light as well. So let's see if I can pull the matcher all the way up. It's not bad. I'm going to tone it based on these as well. And that might give us a more direct, exact color matching result. I can probably blend this in a little bit. There we go, we're getting somewhere now. Let's add in some darks to the shadow there. And I'm pretty pleased with this match. Needs one more little rim back here, so let's kind of create that by pointing this light a little bit forward, pushing it back, just so it catches the front just the way it is in the real model. And beautiful, that's good enough for me. I think this clip is going to be pretty quick, and I think everything is working and matching pretty well. So that's the power of this element plugin. It's really great, especially for rigid stuff, because it renders them really well. It's using the GPU, and I just really like the results. They're very, very quick to get, and as you see, that was barely any work to do. So going back on my words, I'm creating a camera just so I can kind of match it to everything. I'm going to try this little trick where I place the null in the right spot, because that null is where the whole anchor point should be. Let's try a little more tinting. Matches well enough. We'll attach these lights to the null so they stay in the same spot relative to the 3D object, as well as the 3D null. And because this is a small enough comp, the 3D null attached to this head completely works for the tracking. So check that out. As the camera moves up, that 3D null is parented to my original 2D tracked null, and it really just holds that right in place. It's perfect. Now we'll play with some animation settings. There's a few keyframe points for the orientation of this. I want it to kind of be looking maybe over in the background somewhere at first, and then as it turns toward camera, kind of tilt down and fire at me. So I'm doing two separate start and stop rotation keys just so it's a little bit mechanical looking. So it's off there in the front or in the back corner, and then turns its head right as the camera comes over, jolts to a stop for a few frames, and then starts to tilt down. Nice. So way too fast. So let's try stretching this out a lot. Just one long rotation toward me. That's still fast. So I'll tweak that a little bit. Try to figure out just a nice curve that I can kind of come forward and look down at me. I'll maybe have it shoot some laser blasts just right above camera. Play with my old friend Light Wrap. Let's see if that helps blend it in anymore. Not amazing results, but it kind of helps with that little glow right around the neon lights right over here. Let's create an adjustment layer that is tracked to the null. I'm going to scale it properly here, create a mask, and use the glow setting to try to enhance that light wrap from just this one light. And you'll see that this adjustment layer is going to track with my null, which is really great. And it's going to keep a nice little glow just around this one particular fluorescent light. Let's add some noise as well to this, try to match the original footage. It's not very extreme, but just enough that it doesn't feel too CG. It's going all right. Adjust these brightness and contrast settings again, try to get it a little bit more in the correct realm. It's doing all right. It's a little yellow. Let's tint that down a little bit. There we go. Now I'm going to need to erase that other head. So luckily I remembered on the set to take some photos of just the ceiling pretty blank. So nothing complicated here. I'm just going to take the picture that kind of has a similar looking neon light. It's really from just a few feet over. I'm going to scale it as close as I can, kind of rotate it around, and then I'm just going to use that same 2D tracked point. Let's see, let's adjust this to match a little bit better. It's a little bit cooler than my footage, so we'll probably need to color match that as well. Let's look at this alignment here. I just needed to cover the original statue's head. So watch this, it's going to be super simple. There we go, feather that out a little bit. Let's turn it, let's put it in the right spot and turn it up. Let's color match it to our original footage, see how well that does. Add in a little bit more warm. Adjust that. Now it's still a little bit blobby, but I think we're pretty close. I can probably blend. Yeah, there we go. Expand that a little bit so that light is all kind of removed. Play with the color a little bit more. And then, honestly, let's see what happens when I turn the head back on, because really I just need to not be able to see that part of the footage. So, let's see. Put it back on here. Play through. Let's skip forward a little bit, play through. Great, that head is matching pretty well. I didn't have to do any really complicated erasing. Just put in really basically just some black abstract ceiling photography back there. So I think I'd like him to look a little bit more toward camera when he does this. So let's play with his rotation settings again. Whoops, that's actually on the null, I mean. Let's have him start turning his head earlier, and then right at the end, let's have him look down. Yeah, a little more toward camera. That's great. So that all feels really good to me. I'm going to try to correct this little pop with this lighting up here in the top corner by adding in a solid that just kind of functions as a giant grad, really. I'm just going to create a quick mask, feather the crap out of it, make it, let's try add. Just put it up here. It just looks like a little bit of glow coming from the ceiling and all these lights. Let's adjust that. Adding in a little teeny bit of noise always helps. Great. Now it feels like maybe there's some just glow from the general hot lights up by the ceiling, and that'll kind of blend all of our colors and everything together. It's always nice to have something behind, something in front to really marry stuff to your scene. Yeah, I can dig it. Next thing we're going to do is add some laser blasts, kind of as the walker's looking around. I'll start with a black solid and add a beam effect. I'm going to make the thickness of the beam a lot more. And as I recall, AT-AT blasts are kind of reddish. I'm going to make them additive, and I'm just going to do something really simple. These beam settings are really easy. You can just set a point for the start and then set a point for the end. I'm going to make it kind of forward and off camera a little bit. And this time slider here slides the laser beam back and forth between those 2 points. And really the laser blast should only be 2 or 3 frames. So I can set a key for the time there, skip a few frames forward and change the time all the way to 100. A little trick is to try to trim your layer down. You can do that using the Alt bracket and Alt end bracket to set, but even when these laser blasts are on 100% of their time, they show up as little dots, so I like to just trim the layer off as soon as it's done. And I can just make a bunch of duplicates of this, and all I need to change is the starting and ending point, actually. See? They're very, very, very quick. This one I'm going to make the ending thickness really big, as if it was coming toward camera. Boom. See? Kind of cool. I'm going to enhance that a little bit by bringing in some stock footage. Let's go back to Action Essentials, muzzle flashes maybe. I'll just bring in a random sampling of them. I'm going to run my create folder script again, reorganize everything here. And then let's flip through and kind of see what these different muzzle flashes look like. They'll be really great if I can kind of tone them to kind of match the laser blasts a teeny bit. Probably make them additive. And that'll just give a nice bit of... Hey everyone, sorry my recording dropped out for this little bit. All you will miss is that I realized the layer was reacting to the two lights that I had put in the scene. So I used the shortcut AA, which is A to A real quick, reveals the 3D properties of the layer, and I can turn off the accepts lights. That way it'll just stay its true colors no matter what lights are shining on it. Anyway, back to the program. Alright, so I'm going to take a duplicate of this muzzle flash and kind of just put it right here where this other one is. Run that through. I think this will look pretty good. Bam, bam. Excellent. Now as I watch through here, I realize that these guys are drifting a teeny bit. So I should actually attach both of these layers to the original null that's driving all of this stuff. And help a little bit. I'm going to look for a front on blast so I can put it on this last toward camera 1. Change it to add. Let's see, there we go. Let's flip through this a little bit. Bam. Leaves a little bit of smoke and looks like a nice blast right there. It can be a little bit bigger, a little dangerous. I'm going to tone it to match these laser blasts, kind of a red. It's a little hot, so I'm going to tone down the white even, since it's getting added to the laser blast anyway. Great. Now that smoke kind of drifts with the camera too, the one that's coming off those first lasers. And that third blast comes right at camera. I am happy with that. Great. Now I'm going to create a little light that kind of matches the laser color. And I'm going to use it to enhance the moments where the lasers blast. So I'm going to place it right under this AT-AT's head. And then, see, that kind of lights up the whole bottom of his chin. I guess that's his chin. I'm actually going to use it as a spotlight instead of this point light. In a way I can aim it right here. And I can press F11 to jump to a custom view where I can see the side. Kind of rotate the camera around to make sure that my light is in fact in the right spot, kind of right under his chin and casting up onto him. Seems about right. And now I can take this intensity level and just create some keys. So right as the laser blasts hit, it'll kind of light up his chin, but right before that I'll have it at 0. And then just a few frames later I'll have it dial back. Play with this angle a little bit. There we go. Anyway, what was I saying? We'll dial back this intensity down to 0 as soon as the laser blast disappears, which should be in just a moment here. And there we go. So by now that laser blast is gone. That should be back at 0. And then just a moment later that second laser blast goes off, so this intensity could come back up. And I think you folks get the idea. I'm also thinking that a way to tie all of these elements together would be to have kind of a lens flare that covers everything. So minimize all this stuff, and I'll create a solid on top. I'm going to make it black, and I'm going to apply null light factory to it. I'll just grab something that looks a little bit like one of these ceiling lights. I'm a big fan of this anamorphic zoom effect. I'm going to create a null, and then I'm going to attach that null to my master kind of camera tracked null. So I'm going to slow this down for a second. I'm going to alt-click on the position settings, which opens up the expression controls. I'll click and drag the pick whip to the null 2, which enters it into the expression. Then I'm going to type .2comp, parenthesis, bracket, 0, 0, 0, end bracket, end parenthesis. What that does is it says, for this light, look at the location of this null 2 relative to the comp, even though it's already parented to something. Don't take its actual position values, take its positional values as they relate to the comp. So you'll see as I play through now, that light will look like it's kind of married to the scene. There are other instances where you need to use an expression like this. It's one of my favorite go-tos. An expression that uses 2comp, or an expression that uses 2world when you're trying to grab 3D position data for something like particular or even parenting complex 3D null chains or something like that. That may all sound super foreign and weird, but I promise it's really simple and will be very useful to your compositing career. Give this a last look through. Bam, bam. So for now I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit. All I've done is I've added a little bit of dust at camera kind of effects and some dust waves as these laser blasts are supposed to be hitting the camera. I also pre-comped the whole AT-AT comp and was able to add a little bit of a rumble using a wiggle expression attached to a slider. That way I can slide up the amount of wiggle right as the laser blast hits camera. It's kind of like that. And pretty much with that last effect, I'm going to go ahead and call this AT-AT section done. Alright, now I've only got a couple more effects to breeze through before I gotta release this video. Hey everybody, thanks for joining me like a year late for all of these videos. Sorry they're not very timely, but there's a whole bunch of them here if you want to click on any of them. So have a good day. May the Force be with you.